Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining our webinar today, Cognitive Search for Life Sciences R&D, Harness Evidence Data in Just a Few Clicks. We have two speakers today from Mareana, Knerr, he's our CEO and co-founder, and another co-founder, Vishal, Prasad, who's also our Chief Product Officer. Both are life sciences veterans with many years of experience implementing enterprise solutions. In this webinar, we'll discuss the benefits of Mareana's qFind solution, followed by a short demo. Two things before we begin, though. There's a Q&A button on your screen. Mac users, you'll see that Q&A button at the top. Windows users at the bottom of the screen. Please don't hesitate to submit questions throughout the presentation. I'll try to get to as many questions as possible in the time allotted. There'll also be a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the demo. Also, we have 3 polling questions throughout this presentation. We're going to give you about 15 seconds to answer them to the best of your ability, and they'll begin a little bit later on. So let's get started. Chris, can you tell us more about the value proposition and what are the benefits?
Sure. Thanks, Lisa, and welcome, everyone. We really appreciate folks taking a few minutes to join the webinar this morning and learn a little bit more about qFind evidence search. If I may, let me take just a few minutes to introduce Mareana and what we do as a company, and then we'll spend some time talking about qFind and about evidence search. So we are an artificial intelligence, big data, and analytics firm. We're primarily focused on helping companies leverage value from unstructured data. Unstructured data means data that's trapped in documents and spreadsheets and images and so on. And our aspiration is, one, our clients never have to say, we don't have the data again. And 2, that we're creating a level of visibility, accessibility, and value from data that is as easy within the firewall of your organization as it is out on the internet. So we'll hear more about this in the course of the presentation today. We have a software solution, a platform that's called qSuite. One of the main elements of the platform, the main modules of the platform, is called qFind. And qFind is sort of basic cognitive search visibility for all sorts of unstructured documents. It also has the ability to pull together data from multiple sources, including enterprise data and so on. We'll learn a little bit more about that. We've deployed qFind in many different industries and in many different use cases. And in the course of working with life sciences organizations, we had this observation that research and development teams are really struggling a lot with the exact problem that qFind solves. And in particular, there is a broad variety of what's called evidence documents. And we're going to show some examples for, some of you I know have life sciences backgrounds and are very familiar, and others may not be. So we'll get a little bit more into what we mean by evidence documents. What we observed in the industry is that, ironically, it's a lot easier when R&D organizations subscribe to external data sources to actually find the data that they're looking for than it is for their internally created documents. And qFind is a unified search platform that allows organizations to see not only what they're getting from external sources, but also what they've authored internally. So we'll show this in the demo, but for example, if you're looking into a disease area like rheumatology, with a simple search, you're able to understand what assets you have available across the entire universe, both internally and externally. And what we found is there are immediate benefits to the R&D organization from this, which I'll get into in a moment, clinical and preclinical. But there are actually many other areas within life sciences companies that use the same evidentiary documentation, medical affairs, HEMA, commercialization, and multiple other organizations that all benefit from qFind evidence search. So if I may, let me take a couple of minutes to just talk about some of the key benefits that we see from evidence search, sort of with an eye to where does this drive customer value, why should customers care, what's the value prop? So the first, to me, and most important thing is that we would like to work through evidence and work through the R&D value chain quickly and robustly. So anything that we can do to accelerate cycle time, to bring products to the market more efficiently and more robustly, and to identify new opportunities, new indications, new markets is of huge value to the R&D organization. And a few of the points that I'm sharing up here on the chart really are about how we can drive business development through improved asset leverage, and how we can speed up that process. So when we get into the demo, what we'll do is sort of talk through some specific examples with the sample data that we have set up. Two more points that I'd like to address on this. One is, I mentioned on the previous slide that this data and this capability is valuable in multiple parts of the organization, right? So what we can do with qFind is create a harmonized process with improved data governance for groups as disparate as clinical, preclinical, and medical affairs, so that they can use the same assets in a consistent way. And then finally, and very importantly, we take a huge amount of effort out of the system. So, in today's world, what we find a lot of R&D organizations struggling with is I have scientists, I have researchers, they're struggling to find data, they're wasting a great deal of time finding data. They can't easily collect and use the assets that we have. What we found, actually in all qFind implementations, but in evidence search in particular, that we can reduce non-value-added manual effort in finding the right data by up to 90%, and really optimize both the work experience and the value of the critical scientific human capital that we have. So yeah, let's transition, and Vishal, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more detail about the module and how it works, and then take us into the demo, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chris. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. So what I will spend the time on in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes is describing more around how it all happens. So Chris just explained, right, the value case behind something like qFind, and especially within the realm of life sciences R&D. Most organizations, they spend a lot of effort and a lot of dollars in terms of doing internal R&D and creating documents, but then after it gets created, it remains in silos and it is not easily accessible to the whole organization. What qFind does is basically it liberates all that information, right? At its very core, you can almost think about it like a Google-like search for all of enterprise data, right? So let me talk about some of the key features that qFind comes with that makes it very useful when it comes to life sciences R&D. The very first thing I would talk about is this cognitive search, right? What qFind contains is basically built-in ontologies. It understands what is a disease. It understands what is a brand. It understands that a brand could have multiple molecules, or the brand and molecules are synonyms for each other. It understands what's an active substance. It also recognizes, who are my different, let's say, competitors, or who are the different organizations that are dealing with a particular drug or a particular substance. And more importantly, it can also understand and differentiate between different types of documents. So the cognitive part of it comes very handy in terms of making this very useful for life sciences R&D. The second part is you can deploy this with very little human intervention, which means that you can deploy it extremely fast. Third, it is really a self-learning tool. So as time passes by, as it consumes more and more data, more and more document, it continuously learns new terms, new diseases, new molecules, and stays relevant. And lastly, it's flexible. And we will show this to you in the demo and after the demo as well, in terms of how easily it can fit within your enterprise, let's say, rules, where, if things have to be restricted from a security perspective, it can be restricted. If it has to connect with multiple different sources, it can get connected very easily. If people have to basically raise some issues or tickets, it's all integrated with your backend systems. So with that,
and if I can just interject for a sec, Vishal, if I can leave everyone with one key point on this slide, is that the difference between what we've done with cognitive search is that we are able, using algorithms, to automatically extract and classify the contents of documents. So there's no need for people to kind of hunt and peck and say, oh, this document is related to rheumatology, this document is related to cardiology. And the whole, sort of taxonomy of different relevant features of the document that we have, that extraction and handling all happens in an automated fashion by means of algorithms. And that's the magic.
And I want to interrupt as well. I think it's important to let the audience know how we define ontologies and what that means to us here at Mareana.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lisa. So but when I say an ontology, what I really mean is understanding the sense of what is contained in a document. A simple example could be that, in the English language, you can use the word star in multiple different ways, right? You can be using star as in it's in a celestial body, or you can be using the word star as he's in a rising star, or it's a movie star, right? What is very important is for the engine to understand what is the context in which it is being used, what is the semantic usage of that word, so that it can be used appropriately. And the way we have done that is we have built those ontologies as far as life sciences is concerned within the engine. So we very easily understand, hey, are we talking about a disease? And if you're talking about a disease, are we talking about it in a perspective of there are some, let's say, adverse reactions to this particular molecule, or these molecules actually help in the cure of that particular disease? So learning that context and understanding that context becomes extremely important in making the search results very, very powerful and very, very relevant. Yeah.
Yep. Great. Thank you. I think we're going to ask the polling question now. I'm going to launch it and give you approximately 15 seconds if you would answer to the best of your ability. Does your organization have a document visibility issue? Please answer the poll now. Couple more seconds. Excellent, thanks. I have unanimous yes, actually. Your organizations do seem to have a document visibility issue. Let me share those results with you. Great. Vishal, do you want to continue on with qFind?
Yep. Let me now jump into the demo of the tool. I think just by looking at qFind, it'll automatically answer many questions. So let me just log in. So like I was saying, the way we have, hold on, let me try it again. Okay, cool. Yeah, the way we have designed this is basically taking into account, what works very well for real R&D folks. So we have kept the user interface extremely simple. It's a search engine, right? But once, let's say you search, in this case, basically I said, okay, bring me everything, right? Once people actually search for it, the look and feel is in such a way that people can arrive at the right results very, very quickly. So what you see is you have the search bar on the top, but on the right-hand side over here, you have the documents, you have a thumbnail of the documents, making it very easy for people to scan through it. And some of the key pieces of information are also showing up over here. So this makes it easier for people to skim through all of these search results and understand what is relevant and what is not. And by the way, this is all configurable, right? The second part that we have also customized qFind for, let's say relevant from a life sciences perspective is these attributes of any particular document. So we now have models that can understand by looking at the content of the document. Is this a journal article? Is it a research support paper? It's a review, or it's an observational study. And based upon that, we automatically classify this into these different buckets. And while these buckets will make a lot of sense for people who actually do this for a living, who come in and who basically review these documents. And I have a whole exhaustive list of documents that I will actually show you that we have seen people use with qFind. This one is only a representative sample based upon some 6,000 documents we downloaded from PubMed. What we also have, and this is part of the secret sauce, which is basically the ontologies, which allow us to also understand what is the speciality that is being talked about here. Is this basically relevant for, is it relevant for electrophysiology, or is it biosurgery, or is it something else? So when someone comes in here and they basically do a search, for example, if I do a search, it not only refines the results, but it refines the results in the different buckets so that people can quickly see, what is it that I need to really, go after. And you can keep doing this, right? So for example, I'm interested in looking at the results of asthma being caused through pollution, right? So I have these different specialities and these different documents that I can basically go and take a look at. The third thing, and like I said, we continuously improve this to make it more relevant for, let's say, life sciences R&D. What we have seen is quite often people are very interested in understanding who are their competitors who are in this particular space and what kind of, let's say, research are they doing, right? So you have this piece in here as well, where we bring out all the basically entities that are engaged in these research papers, and we show it here. So for example, if you really want to do something on, hey, I want to understand about what's going on in Canada, you can come in here and you want to understand, hey, I want to understand what this pharmaceutical company is doing. You can apply the filters, and then the documents that are relevant for that just show up, and then you can basically go ahead and do your research that way. So very, very simple, very easy to use. So where people used to spend, let's say, hours in terms of skimming or finding documents sitting in the different document repositories, now they can have all of this in a couple of clicks. And by the way, all of this is configurable. So you can define your own, let's say, facets, the way you want to club these documents, and we can train our models to reflect them on the screen. It also comes with some very simple features. So for example, you can go and you can click on documents that you like. And this is very important because the system also continuously learns. So every time you basically go and say, I like this document, that basically helps it understand that next time onwards, I will give this a higher weightage as far as search ranking is concerned. You can also do bulk downloads. You can select all these documents and download them in bulk. You can also save your search strategy. So that you already got some results, which is good, and you want to save it for later. It already has this. You can just save it. You can come in, pull up your search strategy, and all your results again show up. Right. Another point on this is self-learning. So every action that you do on this particular screen. So let's say basically you hover on the screen, but you never click on it. Or you hover on the screen, you feel it is, this document is good, and you click on it. That tells us more information about whether users are liking this or not liking it. And based upon that, we move it up in the search ranking or down in the search ranking. But this is a continuously learning engine that keeps into account what's going on, how people are interacting with it, to make sure that the search results are relevant.
Excellent. That was an excellent demo. Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, so just maybe a couple of points. And if you look at the example we walked through, looking at asthma, like what assets do I have available for asthma, and then drilling down to pollution, then drilling down to Canada. I can look at the document type and I can see if there are existing clinical trials or studies that have been done of this. So sort of coming back to the point of not only reducing effort, obviously reducing effort is very important, but we're really creating a new capability for the R&D organization to locate relevant assets quickly that are germane to the kind of research that they're working on. And kind of similar point, we haven't gone into this as much, but if you think about starting to create a data governance process over all of these assets, over all these unstructured documents, we have sections for who owns the document, is the country approved, what market is it approved, what language it is. And again, remember that nobody had to create this data. This is data that is read using the ontology model and the algorithms from the document itself, or from the pool of documents itself. So this is really powerful, not only in terms of providing kind of a nice user experience for high value human capital, but also in terms of taking that cycle time out, finding new commercialization opportunities, finding out what work has already been done as we're pursuing new opportunities and taking out cycle time.
Thanks for the additional info, Chris. I think we can move on to Q&A now.
No, Lisa, I just want to cover a couple of other things before
Okay.
we move to Q&A. Okay. So in continuation with this, because the demo was created with a restricted set of documents that we got from PubMed, in general, what we have seen is, whole series of different types of documents, and this is only a representative set here on the screen that people normally use, right? So it varies from all the way from dossiers to case studies, to medical literature compilation. All of this is relevant. qFind basically stores all of these documents and indexes it and makes it available for quick and easy find. And then the power is not just restricted from an R&D research perspective, where people can go quickly research past documents, but other parts of the organization also benefit from it, right? So for example, the health economics and market access, when they are looking for a particular dossier or a case study, which they might have seen sometime, let's say 5 years back, they come in, they do a couple of searches, and they get the relevant case study very easily, and they can use it. We have also seen people, put in, let's say, approved marketing decks, which they basically have it in qFind, so that later on, when they actually want to get to it, it's easier to get to based upon just doing a simple search and then using that content in whichever way they can.
Right, so this is a key point. What we have in qFind, and obviously we focused on evidence search here, but it can be clubbed with any other kind of relevant document. So it can be clubbed with approved marketing materials, it can be clubbed with regulated labels, but basically any kind of structured or unstructured data that we can bring in and bring a broader range of capabilities to the entire organization.
And I'll do one more slide, Lisa, before we go to Q&A.
Okay.
So this basically, the main point here is, qFind drops into your enterprise and connects end to end, right? We have processes, it basically allows user registration, and the user registration is really to basically manage the access piece of it. We know for sure that, in different organizations, there are different restrictions on who can get to what document for valid reasons. So the user registration piece is built in. The search and refine piece, I already spoke about. We have the taxonomy and the ontologies built in that makes the search very relevant. And the search engine basically goes and continuously looks for documents coming in through all the different repositories and automatically indexes it for search. We have some personalization pieces available, which I showed you on the demo. You can actually save your searches. You can mark documents that you find more relevant so that it saves time and makes it more useful. We have reporting insights. So depending upon how people are using the search engine, more clicks, higher ranking, less clicks, lower ranking, all of that reporting and insights are built in, and then we continuously train so that the search results are continuously improved and remain relevant. And finally, from a support standpoint, in your internal organization, you also have the ability to basically reach out to the authors of documents. So if you have a question about something, you know the authors, you can very easily reach out to them. And also, if you have an issue with the tool itself and you want to get some technical support, it has built-in connectivity with your ticket management processes within the enterprise. So it provides an end-to-end solution right from start all the way to finish, and it's been designed in such a way that it fits and integrates with your operations very, very easily. And at the bottom of this, everything is built with automation, and it's a self-learning engine that continuously improves the overall search experience.
Excellent. We really appreciate the elaboration. Now we can go on to Q&A, but before that, I want to ask another polling question. I'm going to send it out again, 15 seconds or so for you to answer it. Basically, does this help in better understanding cognitive search? Please answer now. Appreciate it. Couple more seconds. One more second. You guys are much too kind. Thank you. 100%. You better understand cognitive search. Let me show you the results. All right. I've been writing down a bunch of questions that I'd like to ask. And if you have any additional to send in, please just use the Q&A buttons. Again, Mac users at the very top of your screen. Windows users at the bottom of your screen. I'll get to them because we have a few more minutes left. We stop sharing those results. Okay, one question here. Cognitive search, why not use the search that comes with SharePoint? Who can answer that?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Lisa. Let me go back to one of the slides that I actually used and go through in a little more detail. So SharePoint search has been around for a long time, and it's a very simple, naive search which basically looks at the documents and tries to basically give you the relevant hits based upon, let's say, the number of the content of the number of words or the number of hits. What it lacks is the cognitive piece. It lacks the self-learning piece, right? It has been around, but it is not widely used by especially folks in R&D or in other organizations, because the results are not that good. It takes a pretty significant amount of time for people to sort through the results and get to the content that they really need. The main thing here is around cognitive search, which automatically does that hard work of understanding what you're trying to search and then makes the results that relevant. Plus, like I explained during the demo piece as well, it's a self-learning engine. If people are not clicking on documents, or if they're marking a document as highly relevant, or they're clicking on it many, many times, then the engine understands that these are important documents, these are more relevant documents, and it adjusts the the ranking accordingly. So the search results are very, very relevant. The idea here is to make the tool very easy to use, just like, you think about Google. We all like Google because it is easy to use and the results are very relevant. Google is basically doing semantic search behind it. It is doing for cognitive search, right? We are doing the same thing, but we have tailored it very tailored it to the life sciences R&D piece, so that the results are very relevant for them.
Yeah, I think there's kind of another key point I'd add to that. I mean, I think, Vishal, you hit basically SharePoint search doesn't work very well. It kind of stinks, and our search is really awesome. So that would be a good reason to use qFind. The other thing, and this is sort of a more serious point, qFind can point to multiple repositories, right? So if you have a SharePoint, you probably don't have one SharePoint, you probably have 10 SharePoints or 50, and you probably have 50 network drives. And if you're a global R&D organization, you have external subscriptions as well. And what none of those things will allow you to do is to bring all that data together in one place. That's exactly what qFind will allow you to do, is to point at all those repositories, take in all the key data, and provide holistic search over all of those in a very straightforward way.
Excellent, thank you. Here's another question from a participant. Can qFind coexist with our document management solution? Chris, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, and actually that's kind of a good segue from the last point that I was making. So, you know, I just talked about network drives, external subscriptions, SharePoint drives. If there are, you know, formal content management systems like Documentum and so on, we have native extractors that will easily interface with those and pull the documents out of those. In fact, you know, it's often the case that we see multiple content management systems as well. Some of the content management systems, they typically come with some amount of metadata. We can actually take that metadata in as well, and we'll use that in a way to improve the search results. So if there's an existing document management solution, absolutely we can coexist with it and vastly improve on the capabilities of it, you know, based on what qFind does.
Great. Another question from a participant. Can qFind keep up with new documents and updates? Vishal,
Sure.
Can you answer that?
Yeah, I can take that. So let me go back to this one slide that I was using. One of the key features of qFind is when we deploy it within the enterprises, we connect it to the different document repositories, and then qFind is continuously polling to understand if new documents are basically coming in. It not only understands whether new documents are coming in, it also understands if the same document has gone through a version change, and then it keeps the content fresh. And these are the features that make it so much better than your traditional, let's say, a simple SharePoint search, because here you're continuously polling in documents, you're understanding versions of the same document, and then for the new documents, you're basically pulling them in a relevant way using cognitive search.
Great, thanks. I just got a new question from the audience. Do you have examples of using cognitive search that extracts quantitative data that can then be structured for additional analytics?
Yeah, that's a great question. Vishal, can you put the slide that has qSuite up on it? The one that shows our whole platform. Yeah. So just briefly, this is an overview of the qSuite platform, which is our flagship product. And obviously, we've spent most of the time today talking about qFind, which is the cognitive search component of the platform. The step that comes after qFind is called qSync. And what qSync does is it takes all the work that we do in qFind and brings it to the next level by taking key data out at a very detailed level and syndicating that so that it can be used in other analytics applications. So I'll answer the reverse of a question we got earlier, which is, suppose I want to stand up a new content management system, an enterprise content management system, and I have a lot of documents from which I want to pull attributes, and I don't want to do that manually. What we would do in that case is we would do a combined, we would first do qFind so that we can get a sense of what all the data is, automatically classify it, and we would then work with the organization to pull out key values of that for population into another enterprise system. So in the context of R&D, that could literally get down to the level of results from studies, patient populations, very specific anonymized demographics and so on. We also very commonly use this in product lifecycle management implementations for life sciences and food and beverage companies, where there are a lot of data that are stored in PDF analytical testing standards, recipes, and so on that need to be converted into some kind of enterprise system. So Very, very good, insightful question. The short answer is yes. That would sort of be the next step from a module perspective. After we organize all this data, if we want to then start pulling out very granular features of it and syndicating it throughout the organization, either for analytics or into other enterprise systems, that's what the qSync module does.
Terrific, terrific. Okay. I think you touched on installation a little bit, whereas you said it would be quick, but what is a typical installation like is the question from the audience. Vishal, can you answer that?
I think we have one fact slide on that.
Okay, yeah.
So maybe let's just switch to that. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, a typical installation is somewhere between 8 to 12 weeks, Lisa. And it really depends upon how much of customization that you want to do. I mean, if you're going with something that already is coming out of the box, like the look and feel that you already saw, then it's very, very fast. You connect to all the document repositories and be done with it in about 8 weeks. But if you really want to customize it, and especially on the left-hand side, you saw all the facets, right? You want to, based upon how your internal organization is structured. Let's say you have one group that deals with diabetic care, one other group that deals with oncology, and you want to basically get that differentiation on the left-hand side, so that depending upon who is doing a search, they get that grouping, then those kind of customization takes a little bit of time. So I would typically say it's somewhere between 8 to 12 weeks, 8 with less customization and 12 with a little bit more customization and connecting it and deploying it.
Awesome. I think we...
Yeah, I think just because we have this slide up and these come up a lot, just you've probably been able to read the 2 quick points on this. We offer flexible hosting models for this, so we can either host it third party, or it's not uncommon that life sciences companies would like to keep this behind their firewall. So in that case, we help with the installation and the infrastructure for that. And then I think we touched on the security, but we've got enterprise class security throughout the module. And what does become important in some of these implementations is who can see what kind of document. So we've got an ability to make that extremely granular, if necessary, and kind of restrict what access folks have to different kinds of assets, which in certain contexts may be very important, especially within R&D.
Great. I just got another question. I think it's a follow-on maybe from installation. It says, what kind of training is available for implementation?
Yeah, that's a really easy question to answer. If you can use Google, you can use qFind. So when we roll this out, typically what we do is we do like a 1-hour kickoff session. We give folks access to the application. We turn them loose. As Vishal mentioned, we've got a lot of auto detection tools within the platform, so we can see usage statistics. We can pick up from what users are using it extensively, what users are not. We kind of use that to fine tune it, but the training is very minimal and very non-invasive. And I will say we've gotten awesome feedback from organizations and users to whom we've deployed this over time. And people really see this as a game changer, and very valuable in terms of the function that they're doing, but also kind of nice from an IT innovation standpoint.
Right. And just to add to that, from a training perspective, what we have seen is search is so simple that people can automatically learn it. You really don't have to do any training. And the other good part about search is people then use search very innovative ways in order to add, extract different kind of values. So one example that I do remember is after we had deployed this, we saw a lot of hits coming in from Japan. And essentially what people were doing that for the new hires that were coming into R&D and other organizations, rather than helping them or having a formal training, they were given access to this particular tool so that they can educate themselves on the lines of research that was actually going on at that point in time. So training is basically, you really need absolutely zero training. And the good part is because search is so easy, people can then figure out multiple different ways of using it.
Great. I have only one more participant question. It says, we're a small company. How can qFind work for us?
Yeah, so this is a good question too. And so we talked a lot, and sort of the context for this was large, very complicated global R&D organizations. What we've found in both in R&D and in other functions is small companies have the same kinds of problems as big companies. They just often don't have as much budget and as much resource to deal with it. So absolutely, qFind can lightly be deployed in a small company. And in fact, one of the benefits is that we can actually replace all of the existing content management systems with qFind. So, whereas in very large distributed global organizations, we sort of tend to favor the approach of taking a light touch and bringing everything together in one unified portal. If it's, like a US-based, preclinical company, we can actually replace the entire content management repository system with qFind, keep everything there, create a vehicle to also draw in any external data that's subscribed to, and do that in a way that's cost effective as well. So the cost obviously is going to vary with the complexity and type of documents and data sources that we have. But absolutely, I mean, one of the things that I like about this is, it's simple and kind of low touch, both from a big, ultra complicated company context and also smaller company context.
Great. I have a polling question. One more polling question.
One more. Is this the quiz, Lisa, where we're going to ask people for a definition of ontologies?
Exactly, it is.
No, we decided to leave that one out, right?
Was this session useful? Be honest. Thank you. 15 seconds. Three more seconds.
So this was a great session, everyone. Thanks for giving a few minutes of your morning today. We really appreciate everyone joining. I think we have one more slide with some contact information. Definitely have enjoyed hosting the call today. And we're happy to talk at length about this. We have our contact information here, Chris, Vishal, Lisa, and myself. And please also do follow us on Twitter and on LinkedIn.
All right.
Thanks very much, everyone. And
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you, everyone.